Okay, and here we are back. A little different piece of music tonight. Not exactly the cut I had in mind. I'll have to go through that again. But nice anyway. Hope you had a good day today. Feeling a little worse today, actually. I guess those of you who have been in car crashes know your body doesn't really manifest all of its aches and pains for several days sometimes. And wow, I am really sore, I'll tell you that. Up first tonight to talk to us about many interesting things, not the least of which may apply to what happened to me and others, like the journalist Michael Harrison in L.A., and too many others to count. It's very simple to take a piece of scientific electromagnetic gear and shoot a beam of energy into somebody's brain, I'm finding. I've learned so much about this. And literally shut them off. Just put them to sleep instantly. And it just takes a half second, if you're doing 60 miles an hour, for a car to go into oblivion, as you might want to put it. Here to talk to us this hour about those things and others, Preston James, one of the most intriguing writers on the Internet, a good friend of mine and this program and yours as well. Hello, Preston. Welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me on, Jeff. I was really sorry to hear that you had that bad accident, but I'm glad you survived it.
Well, it was two people in two professionals said it's not a survivable wreck. So I'm real lucky. Said simply that most people would never walk away or be even carried away alive from that. So I'll get some pictures of it here, hopefully, in the next couple of days. And I haven't seen it. It may be traumatic for me to see it, what's left of it.
Sure.
It's a hell of a car, 1997 Toyota Land Cruiser. And people used to laugh at me about the mileage. And I said, look, I don't care. I'll pay for the 17 miles a gallon to get the extra insurance. And that was the difference. There's no question. If I was in any smaller car, I'd have been toast. Almost was.
Yep, they're really well built. They're built for, desert use in Africa. So.
Yeah. So what about this issue of using a beam energy weapon on people to shut them off in times of, when they're conspicuously involved with doing something that's very important, like driving?
Well, there's a long history of this. Of course, there's a full range of these kinds of weapons. They're called psychotronic weapons. The first I ever found out about it was back in the 70s, where a certain alphabet agency, which ran the COINTELPRO programs, had a special division, and the people running it were absolute psychotic, criminally insane nutcases. Mm-hmm. And delusional, everything else, and they were flag wavers, but they thought anybody that protested anything, and it started during the Vietnam War, and they wanted actually to assassinate all war protesters, including returning vets or anybody. They just thought they were. That's correct. And it kind of shocked me. But these people, what they would do is, and I know of cases firsthand. You have a whistleblower, whatever. The first cases I heard of were people that would travel around the world, and after on their third visit, the CIA would meet them and say, we're interesting what you do. You're a good American, right? Yeah, well, we want you to collect information for us where you go and keep a log and all this stuff when you get back. And then if they do that after a while, they say, well, we want you to plant these bugs in these various houses. So there's one guy, he said, absolutely not. That's espionage. He said, I don't have any diplomatic cover. If I get caught, they'll execute me in these various nations. And they said, no, your CIA will protect you. Don't you worry. And he said, absolutely not. And they said, listen, you're going to do it or else we're going to make your life a living hell. He said, F you, and left. And so then soon after that, somebody moved next to the next apartment over, and he started having headaches and hallucinations, auditory hallucinations. And when he'd open the door and walk in at night from work, he'd hear dice rolling and clattering and pots and pans and voices telling him that, the usual foray. Well, anyway, what it turned out it was... Voice to skull. Right. What they had done, and they'd just taken an ordinary microwave oven, pulled the door off, and pinned it. The lockout circuit, pinned it, right. and then through putting in a couple of tweaks into the circuitry, were able to do voice to skull, where they could speak into a speaker and it would transmit into his brain. And you've had guest Patrick, what's his name? You've had guest, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. You've had guest.
Oh, yes, sure, Dr. Patrick Flanagan.
Yeah, and who's an absolute genius. The guy is unbelievable, and they tried to take him out many times. They burned his lab down and everything else, but he knows a lot more than he ever discloses. But he discovered this, really. And but so that's where it started. And the reason we know this happened because somebody in the CIA came forth, felt sorry for this guy. This guy went to the psych ward. He thought he was cracking up, and the doctors there told him, no, you're all normal. It must have just been something. So then a CIA guy, local CIA guy, had a run-in with his station over drugs, refused to do it, and they took a shot at him in the parking lot out in a suburban area. It fired into a residential community, went right through the window of an apartment building, and of course no one got in trouble or anything. The police were told to stand down and all this. But he went to this person and said, hey, here's what they did. And he told him, the file shows that they took this microwave and adapted it, and they were beaming this stuff at you, and so you need to get out of there. Well, he sued the CIA and sued the local station in town. Of course, whenever they have a CIA station, they always have it under the office name of the guy, that's a fake name for the guy that's the station chief, So anyway, it gets into court and stuff, and this is a huge lawsuit, and the media are barred, everything, all the stuff sealed, and they go back, and Stanley Sporkin calls up during the trial. He's a CIA attorney, tells the judge, there's not going to be a trial. We're locking down all the evidence based on national security. So the judge goes out and says, no trial, nothing can happen. It's all locked down, national security. Sorry. So he got nothing for it, no damages. Now, of course, he's on a no-work list, and they've made his life miserable and whatever. Now, I've worked with a number of cases like this, numerous cases. And one right now, I work with a guy named Mark Nowitzki, who's one of the most important federal whistleblowers ever had, as important as Snowden. And the media won't touch him. He's too dangerous. And they're beaming so much stuff. I've been up to his house through it, and every instrument I have 3 different instruments went right off the map. It was I had to turn them off or it burned the circuits out. That's how hard they were hitting. We eliminated some of the sources were inside the house. We eliminated those related to TV boxes and Wi-Fi, shut all that down, but there's still some strong ones coming from outside. And of course, when we started tracking them by direction, then they turn them off for a while and they turn them on later. So I've seen this, but then there's other kinds of weapons. There's high-powered lasers that will temporarily blind you. There's what's called macers, and there's certain kinds of electronic cannons. These are all handheld devices.
Right, they're small. They're miniaturized now compared to what they were 30, 40 years ago. Oh, yeah.
Oh, they have to be within, the ones that I've seen were had a range of about 100 to 200 feet. But some of them could be tuned to actually shut your car off, too. Or you've heard of the Boston brakes, where they can hack into the computers.
Any electronic ignition system in a car can be remotely shut off.
Right. So anyway, I myself was attacked with something different. And I started to pass out, and someone was with me, so I had a witness. I hit the brakes, and I'm not going to talk about the specific on this on air because I'll tell you sometime it's too weird, but it is true. It's all verified with a witness.
But it basically had you at the wheel, awake, alert, and then you started to pass out.
Fired a beam in from the back that hit the mirror. You know what a welding torch is like. This is a Saturday afternoon with the sun out. It's like about 100 welding torches. We closed our eyes, but even through our eyes, it could have burned us. So I slammed on the brakes as hard as I could. He swerved to miss hitting me, and I was going to do something else.
He was that close, so you got him.
I can't talk about what I was going to do.
I understand.
But he was able to swing in the left lane traffic, take off at high speed. It was a Subaru WRX, which is a high-powered car, took off down the highway, and I was not willing to pull out and chase him. Even though my car is faster than his, I wasn't willing to do that because I was having trouble staying awake. But I have 2 friends. One guy has been a victim since he was 20 years old. He got a job working for a defense contractor in Germany. And the real reason they lied to him, the real reason was they wanted to experiment on him. And they started all these experiments like trying to electronically remove his soul and drugging him with LSD and all this kind of stuff. And he heard the voices and all this stuff. Well, he went to the closest hospital where they had an American doctor there, and he told him, I think I'm cracking up. So the doctor pulled him aside and said, no, there's a big MK Ultra experiment in town. You're one of the suckers. And he said, the fact that it's not working on you, they're probably going to kill you. So don't go back to your apartment. Go from here to the airport, abandon your clothes, and go right to the airport, get on the first plane anywhere but here. Get the hell out of town, or you're a dead man. So
he was lucky that somebody was
they've been
honest.
bothering him his whole life. I had to verify his story. Some of the stuff he did, they shot out his window with a BB gun in the winter. They drilled a hole in his front door. They do little things. The neighbor shot off fireworks in the middle of the night, aimed at his house, and things like this. They move people, and they will buy a house near you. One time I had a friend over sitting in my easy chair, and all at once he screamed and jumped out of the chair, and his little finger had swollen up and turned red like a bee sting. I said, "What happened? You got stung by a bee?" And he said, "No." So I sat down, put my hand in the same place. The same thing happened.
Right
so I
through
ran
the window?
No, this is where it's weird, Jeff. So I went and run to get my instruments to track what it is, and it was a very intense. Whatever it was, it's very intense electromagnetic, like ELF. But any of the ELF I've seen in the past was a waveform where it was it would spread out. This was a very focusing, like no more than an inch wide. And so I traced it where it hit my chair and to where it came through the wall, and traced it right down the street to a house that was owned by a Soviet Spetsnaz guy. So when I start checking into it, calling on the phone and stuff, he immediately moved out. And the house they've been vacant ever since. So the point is, that's the kind of stuff they do. And Mae Brussel, they did the same thing with her when she started saying they bought the house across the street, and they moved in about $50,000 worth of transformer and stuff, and then pulse beam microwave at her until she got cancer. So that's the kind of stuff they do. Now, I had this one friend I told you, he was driving down the street. He came to an intersection. He completely blacked out, went into the intersection, and got T-boned twice by two cars coming each way. Luckily, he survived it. Okay, another friend of mine was his family traveling to Chicago on a highway. All at once, he sees some kind of a flash. They all black out. His car's filled with 4 kids and a wife. They all blacked out. He goes off the road right as he's starting to go off the road. A Suburban sideswipes him, a black government Suburban at 90 miles an hour, but it doesn't hit him hard enough. So he wakes up, fortunately, regains control. Everybody else in the car was asleep for like 10 minutes, even through this. He wakes up, takes off the black Suburban, took off like a bat out of hell and got away. Was a hit and run. But he did see that there was no license plate, so he assumed it's your typical government car. And where the beam that hit him, they never saw where it came from or anything, whether it came from that car or whatever. But that's the MO. And if he had rolled the car, they could have all easily been killed because they were going 70 miles an hour. So we've seen this happen a lot of times, and I've had other people. And if you are interested, I will tell you some of the interesting countermeasures that I've seen work. So.
Yeah, well, I'd like to know, obviously.
Another friend of mine, somebody that you would know of, a real famous attorney, actually was Michael Riconosciuto's attorney at the time. He was traveling down to see him when he was in prison, And so he, once this black helicopter appeared over his car by 300-400 feet up, a green laser comes down, shatters the back window, and made everybody in the car sick. That's the kind of stuff you see. Were they trying to kill him? No, they were. It was a warning to him. But this is the kind of crap that goes on all the time. So now what we have is a situation where, Professor Fetzer, he's staying at my house. I'm educating him on psychotronics, and he doesn't believe any of this stuff. He says it's baloney. So I said, okay, Jim, what would you accept? Jim
was on last night. This is all new to him. How interesting.
Yeah. So I said to Jim, what would you accept? He said, nothing short of 100% proof. I don't go by theories or anything else. I don't go by testimony that's got to be backed up by scientific fact, because he's a professor of logic, and he's a hard sell, this guy. Okay, so we get in the car and I said, now watch. So I take him down the highway at rush hour, and I show him how the microwave transmission's coming off. They put in brand new radio controlled streetlights, and I showed him how they turned the stuff on right as we're going through at rush hour. They turn it off during the day to conserve energy, but in the morning at night they turn them on. And I'm talking real high, powerful stuff, way off, way over the legal health limit. So, it's like 400 milliamps a square meter. This is a lot. Well, anyway, so he was shocked. So then we took down another road in the local community, same thing, where they had the street lights cranked on during rush hour in the morning and at rush hour, but off during the day. And these same street lights, they have speakers and stuff, and they sense people's cell phones, and they spy on people as they're driving by. It's real bizarre. They're putting a lot of money into this. The local public school went over there. The microwave readings were off the map from the Wi-Fi, way over the normal health range. Now, as you know, there are asylum cities in Europe and some countries where people that have been diagnosed with a electronic disability, EMF sensitivity, they can test for it. 3 to 6% of the people, kids or any age adults, have what's called hypersensitivity to EMF, and when they hook up an EEG to their heart, or an EKG to their heart, or an EEG to their brain, they get disturbed brain waves and they get disturbed heart rhythms. So this is not theory, and they actually have a disability. They get government aid for it, and they can live in these asylum cities to be protected from excessive EMF. Well, as you know, probably one province in Canada pulled out all the Wi-Fi in the school because they had reports from Denmark that the scientists there would not certify it as being safe for developing brains, for children's developing brains.
Well, same, in the UK, they've outlawed it, right. Kids under 18. Right.
And, what they're finding out now, as you know, Jeff, in fact, I think you were one of the first to even be concerned about this, is the cell phones that, initially there were no warnings about cell phones, and where the manufacturers are asked, they said it's perfectly safe. Now, if you notice that there are small print warnings in all the cell phones about keeping it, mine says you have to keep it at 3/4 of an inch or more away from your ear.
That's encouraging. It's something. It's not enough, but...
Well, you have to ask yourself, how much damage has been done with this? So my point I'm going to make, and can I verify this? No. Are the sources impeccable? Yes. Is it more than one source? A number of sources. Right now, the cell phone towers can be triangulated. Your house wiring can be used. Smart meters can be used. Some of the appliances in your house, like your certain TV boxes,
HD
can
stuff,
can be used as weapons. Some of them have cameras in them. And you know about lily waves, which is probably the most top secret. They will never admit about lily waves. But when you want to get concerned is when they start digging your road up in front, tell you they have utility problems, because they're probably installing a lily wave generator on your underground cable if it's in there, whatever. But they can target an individual house.
Did I tell you the story that Pat told me? Flanagan,
Dr. Flanagan, you mean?
Did I tell you the story?
I don't remember it.
This is fascinating. Let me jump in here, if I might, real quick.
Yeah.
He went over to see a friend who was a kind of a garage scientist, and he went into the garage, and the guy was in there, and he had a big oscilloscope and other readout instruments there, and they were all lit up, and there was a wave form on the oscilloscope. It was the lily wave. And Pat recognized it immediately. He told me this on the program here 20 years ago. And he said to the guy, he says, "What are you doing?" And the guy said, "You see that?" And he said, "Sure, the lily wave." He says, "Try and guess where it came from." And Pat said, "All right, I give up. Where's it coming from?" And the guy pointed to the electric plug in the wall. He said, "It's in the grid." And it didn't just get there by itself, of course. It was put in there. Now, that's 20 years ago. I've said, and I hear you saying it, and it's great, because people will not look at this as a source base for all kinds of EMF weaponry and chicanery. Your home wiring.
That's right.
Is absolutely perfect for this.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, you've heard of some of the people that have been advocating ground strapping when you sleep at night, or if you're sitting at your desk.
Tell us what ground strapping is. I had a pad. I wish I could find it from my bed. It was full of copper wire, and it was all connected. And then there was a plug on the end of this pad that you plugged into the wall, but it only had the ground plug. Right?
That's
the big round ground. So what it was doing was collecting the stuff, the copper mesh, and then feeding it into the ground and getting rid of it.
Yeah. Those things do help a lot of people. But the bottom line is we're being attacked from Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi can be custom tailored. I had a friend who called me up and he said, "I can't stay awake. I sit in front of my desk at home. I fall asleep. I sit in front of the TV. I fall asleep no matter where I sit downstairs. I fall asleep. If I watch the same show upstairs, I never fall asleep. If I use the computer upstairs, I never fall asleep. Will you come and sweep my house?" So I went over with my German health board equipment for pulse beam microwaves and regular microwaves and swept his house. And at an incredibly high reading, we were trying to find it. But as we were walking, trying to find the beam, it was a narrow beam, maybe 2 to 3 feet wide, but it would change. Wherever we were, it would split the beam between our two heads, not our bodies, but our heads. If we sat down, it would direct downward at our heads in two pieces. If there's only one person there, it would just be one beam at your head. If you stood up on a chair, it would still be at your head. So I'm trying to figure out where is it. We tracked I thought it was coming in from outside. Turns out his son had come home from college and was given a free Wi-Fi modem at college. All the students were given free Wi-Fi to use. And so he brought this home and plugged it in because he wanted to use his portable computer, his laptop. Okay, so we track it to that, and what I find is, you know what a phased array is for radar?
I couldn't explain it, but I've heard of it.
Right, a phased array is the first radar. Now that you see them rotate.
Oh, phased array. Oh, yes, of course. I thought you said
let's
phaser.
Say the first radars had like 15 antennas running in parallel, sticking out of this thing, and where they could switch the circuits between them so they could bend the wave as if it was sweeping.
Okay.
This sucker, and I'm not going to use the name of the manufacturer because they probably all do this, but this sucker had a very expensive, complicated phased array in it, and the thing was only worth $100, but it had to. I mean, normally a piece of equipment that sophisticated would cost a couple thousand. So they're selling these in mass and giving them to students. It's a little suspicious when they give something that nice. So anyway, after disconnecting that, no problem. Not a problem at all. So,
well, all you folks out there, and that's probably most of you, who have Wi-Fi in your house coming off your modem so you can have convenience, you're opening the door for a lot of grief. That's all I can tell you. Hardwire is the only way to go, and even then, once your house has been penetrated or hooked up to the grid maintenance network, which is what I call the way they take care of people electromagnetically, you've got problems, and you've got to take measures indoors. We'll talk more about this with the gentleman who knows, Preston knows more about many things than many people. Let's just put it that way. Be back in just a minute. Okay, Preston James, our guest, and we're learning a lot of things, as we always do when Preston is along with us. The idea of people who are really psychopaths with these kinds of pieces of equipment out to do harm to people. There's so many psychotronic weapon victims running around now, it's not funny. They don't have a chance. Many of them never find out what's going on with them. Some lucky ones do. But then what do you do to tell them how to stop it? It's difficult. There are things you can do, but it's not easy. You have to identify the problem, identify the kind of problem. Is it ELF? Is it microwave? Is it maser? Is it whatever? But it's out there, and it's in the hands of people who are sick. Go ahead, Preston.
Well, that's right. Actually, I would say that they're criminally insane.
No, I didn't want to go that far, but you're on the money.
I've known some of them personally that do this kind of stuff. I'm not going to use any names. Fortunately, one of them is dead, but most of them, bad things happen to them. But anyway, I will tell you what I have seen that works. There are countermeasures. I know one individual used to carry a large mirror with him, about a 1.5-foot mirror. And if anyone ever fired it, or you can also coat your windows with certain 3M coatings that will polarize, that will deflect the wave. But a mirror, the worst nightmare for a lacer is to aim the mirror right back at the shooter, or most of these devices with a mirror, it goes right back at them. So the other thing I've seen is we don't ever want to underestimate the immutable power of the human spirit, because there are many people that when attacked and stuff, it just doesn't break them. What they're trying to do is harass and break people. Now, there's a big association between the deployment of psychotronic weapons. They're mounted in the public schools, in public buildings, a library. Most restaurants have Wi-Fi now. But there's also a big association between that and gang stalking. They seem to go together. People that are hit with a lot of custom targeting of psychotronic weapons normally have gang stalking problems too, where they will have gangs of satanic cults. Most of these people, some of these people have, let's just say, once in a while they run into the wrong person and they end up missing forever. And they get shaken down real good, and they have been found out to be part of an international pedophile network, a satanic network, and the government uses them and makes sure they have income. They actually get paid a monthly stipend for stalking and harassing people, and many of them are involved in the Freemasonry group and whatever, and not openly but secretly. So yes, these are government programs. The FBI and the CIA for years has used satanic cults, a number of them, and I have the names where they are. I know who the people are. They've used them for years as cover to do their dirty work, to launder money, to
of course,
all the usual stuff. But what I wanted to tell you about countermeasures. All right, so now this might sound really foolish, but you're a little bit aware of Psi Power, right? PSI.
Mm-hmm.
Now Psi Power is the most closely guarded secret in the military, even more closely guarded than alien ETs and UFOs. Actually, they do not want people to know about Psi Power. Now, if you wanted to end the corruption in the world, if everybody, let's say almost every good person in the world, which is millions and millions, all got into the habit of visualizing.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah, got into the habit of daily, hourly, having a certain time where they would group think and pray. You want to call it praying to God, praying to Jesus Christ, praying to Allah, but the group praying to God Almighty to crush evil and to expose evil, and actually visualize these people being brought to justice. Some people visualize them being on the end of a rope. Other people visualize them being convicted in court, whatever it is. But if most of the free world conceive this and imagine this all at once, the Psi Power is overwhelming, and we know from experiments that this cripples these people. This knocks the wind out of them. They cannot function when there's a certain tidal wave of human sentiment raised against them. Now, does that surprise you that I'm bringing this up, Jeff?
Not at all.
Okay. Now, you know the value of this because you've screwed up a lot of operations over the years. You've exposed a lot. And, stuff will appear on your website first, and people think, oh, that can't possibly be true. That's not true. And then it keeps cropping up over and over again. Whistleblowers come forth. And finally, it's the accepted norm. Jeff was right in the first place. But it takes time. But when there's a certain mass reach, when there's a certain number of witnesses, it can only be presented so many times, and then people say, hey, that's the way it is. Yeah, but it's a real battle, and it takes a while, doesn't it?
It does take time. You got to be very resilient, and you're not in it for that. If it's kind of an unexpected benefit over time. Things change. The paradigm changes a little bit. But it's very difficult because of what we're up against, which is overwhelming EMF matrix kind of domination. Everything. It's womb to tomb now. It's not funny.
Well, the most of the money right now is being spent in the public schools, mind controlling the kids.
Sure.
And the Wi-Fi is way too high powered. It's dangerous. And I will tell you this: that in my local school system, there have been numerous assassinations in the past of teachers. Problem teachers come down with cancer, brain tumor, whatever. They can triangulate this stuff in and cause all kinds of medical disorders. We proved that. We had someone that infiltrated the school system and gathered evidence, and they had stolen $22 million. They split between the intelligence agencies and the feds, and took their cut, and this whole school was loaded up with intelligence agencies. The internet was being used to spy on the teachers and the students. The same internet ran the city council, all the city computers, and the police, and the whole state. So, and these are the same people that were involved in 911. I'm not going to use any names, but you can figure it out. Well, anyway, the bottom line is they were doing cyber warfare against the teachers and the students, and it was a massive NSA-sponsored program. I think, what the heck is the NSA doing in a public high school? Well, they had militarized the school. It's like, they're abusing the teachers, and a lot of teachers were fired needlessly, and all kinds of. But if they were too much trouble, then they'd make sure that they got cancer and they were out. Otherwise, they'd put pornography ads in their computer, even though they had software that was supposedly prevented. All kinds of dirty stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And got all the proof. And I know of a case where it was presented to a U.S. attorney. The U.S. attorney said, this is going to put a lot of people in jail. 1 month later, he resigned and said, I'm retiring to spend time with my family. And he wasn't even retirement age. So the evidence was taken to Washington, D.C. to the Inspector General for the Department of Education. He looked at it and said, this is unbelievable. We're going to have to talk to Mayor Bloomberg, because as you know, I don't like Mayor Bloomberg, but you know that he came down to the public schools and he found millions of dollars in this and stopped all this crap. Leave it to him. With his accounting skills, he put them out of business. He recovered millions and millions of dollars of this and booted the intel agencies out of the schools.
I didn't know this.
Oh, yeah. And I don't like the other stuff he did, but that's one thing he did. It was good. Okay, but the press never picked up on what he
Now
did.
he's going to be the mayor of London. Wasn't that the rumor?
Yeah. Well, they probably won't have any more money stolen in the public schools.
No.
But they won't have any guns either. So
no, that's true. Hold on a second, Preston.
Right.
We have to do this little quickie, and we'll come right
All
back. Preston James, and yours truly. Glad you're along, and we'll be back. Okay, back with Preston James. You remember, I don't know how many years ago this was, Scott Teeters just wrote in. He reminded me of something that is very fascinating, obviously an experiment. There was a woman driving in a black four-door sedan. I don't know, some mid-sized car. Not a big car, not a small car. And she was on her way to work, I believe. And this, Scott, was this outside Chicago? I think it was. It was outside Chicago. Yeah, you got it. She's driving along, and all of a sudden her car is pushed sideways from the direction that she's traveling. It was just pushed over. And she was quite surprised, pulled over, stopped, got out, looked at I think it was the driver's side of her car, the left side, and it was basically melted in places from the front to the back. Now, Peter Davenport set this up. We had the woman on the program. She described the whole thing. I wonder if that file's still there. She went back at Peter's request, urging to get pieces of the car that were being replaced and car was being repaired. And she went back there, and they were all gone. Nobody could find them. They had been taken off the car, lickety-split, and they were gone.
Yeah, they have weapons. Of course, they have stealth mechanisms where a vehicle can come up alongside of you and you can't see it or hear it because they have various types of quantum.
Well, it's like those vans they're driving around now.
Right.
You can't hear the X-rays going through your bodies or your children's bodies or anything.
But this is different. This is a weapon where they actually have. They fire a plasma ball, and what she was hit with was a plasma ball. She was hit from the side, and the force of it is what knocked her car over. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what happened. But yeah, they have all kinds of weapons like that, and they like to test them on people. I knew a guy that was in the invasion of Panama, and he personally witnessed, and was told never to say anything about it, but it was a pod below a black helicopter, mm-hmm. and it had some kind of beam device on it that melted cars and people, and the people were shrunk down to about 1/4 their size by this beam.
Like a shrunken head. Yeah, they use these weapons in theaters of war, conflict in Iraq. Many weapons were used in Iraq. Battlefield clinical tests, evaluations, all of it.
Right.
Horrible
stuff. You know
stuff.
about the voice of God that was used in the first Iraq War?
I didn't know they actually used it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They don't want anybody to know about it. But basically, they wiped out the whole Republican Guard. It was transmitted 3D by C-130 and a satellite and a ground-based mechanism. And what they did is they holographed it, and they entrained it right into the heads of the soldiers, and they could hear the voice of Allah telling them to throw their weapons down and surrender, that paradise had come and they were going to get 72 virgins and all the usual crap. They surrendered, and they went down to their knees praising Allah and stuff, and they were so mesmerized that the United States Army just came in with bulldozers and bulldozed them over and just murdered all of them.
Well, they were in trenches and underground facilities.
It was a war crime. I mean,
that's how they
were surrendering. Yeah. And the bottom line is they don't want anybody to talk about it, but they also, the other thing I want you to know, Jeff, is these weapons don't always work so well. After that, in the second Iraq War, they deployed what's called poppers, little circular, like 2-inch domes, and put them on the top of buildings and whatever. And they put out pulse beam microwave 360 degrees. They're very powerful. But what happened was, not only did they not pacify the people, they caused migraine headaches in the soldiers and ticked them off and created more violence in the American soldiers. So the soldiers went up and started cutting the wires on them. They just weren't going to let it go on anymore. They thought it was an obnoxious irritant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard incredible stories about that. Well, that's one reason they like these little wars. They get to play with their toys.
Well, that's right. That's right.
On live people.
So the bottom line is we have space platform weapons that have nuclear power reactors on them, and I know they're beaming the United States, but I believe they're beaming the whole world with these frequencies, and we do not know what they are. We do not have adequate sensors down here. Most people, you cannot pick them up with microwave sensors. You can sense behavioral changes in animals. Animals are sensitive to it. When they have the stuff turned on, my animals sense it, and they hide. They go downstairs. But there's talk that these are a scalar standing type wave, or they're a quantum interdimensional wave. Quantum waves are very spooky because they go through a different dimension where time is not the same as we think, time and distance. So whatever it is, this is very, very elite stuff. They're testing them on humans. They don't work the way they claim. A lot of this is just defense contractor fraud. They get these huge billion-dollar no-bid contracts, and they make all these promises, just like the new fighter planes, and they just can't produce like they promised. So eventually what happens, they get tired of it. They say, well, now we got this new system that's better. Give us more money,
Well, the F-35 Turkey continues to be exposed as maybe the biggest boondoggle in modern jet fighter aircraft.
Well, the pilots didn't want to fly it. Was it the F-22?
The F-22, they have oxygen blackouts.
Yeah,
a lot of problems there. But the F-35 has mechanical, software, hardware, you name it, lots of different things.
Well, this thing was supposed to be the final answer, multimodal. They could use it for carrier, for every use there was.
It tried to be the man for all seasons, and it didn't work.
So it's good at everything and good at nothing at the same time.
No, when you got a mid-1950s MiG can defeat it in a dogfight, you have a problem.
Yeah, that's right.
They had to shorten the wings. Go ahead.
Has this been engineered to keep the company repairing this forever as a source of income, or are they just incompetent? What is it, Jeff?
I don't know. They'd have to upgrade the entire fleet of F-35s. They'll probably have to do that at some point, maybe 2 or 3 times already, to correct the defective weapon system components and flight characteristic dynamics. They're just not right. They don't work. The wings are too stubby for the. They need them short for aircraft carrier use, for VTOL. And once they get them airborne, vertical takeoff and landing, VTOL, the planes couldn't perform because of their short, stubby wings in dogfights, so they would get destroyed. Then they come up with a countermeasure, some kind of electronics. Well, don't worry, because when they fire missiles at you, we'll be able to shut them down with this little black box here.
Like defense fraud, doesn't it?
Since when have we not been drowning in defense fraud? It's unbelievable. Okay, where are we going to go with all this? Are they close to perfecting it? They have it where they want it? They just sadistic people who like to go out and ruin the lives of others? There are many, many people in this country who hear voices all the time or routinely and they can't figure it out, and they lose it.
Right now, Jeff, over 20 million people are being attacked in gang stalk intermittently. 20 million that we know of. That's a lot of people.
Wow.
And many, many educated people with PhDs, MDs, all walks of life. And it's a huge experiment, it looks like. And yes, this will all fail because, again, they don't understand the human spirit. They're trying to crush the human spirit. It's failing. It never works like they claim. But what they're doing is they're ticking people off. The smart meter is a point of contact because the day is coming when smart meters will be defeated. They're not UL rated. They cause fires. They harm some people's health, not everybody's health. But we know for a fact that 3 to 6% of the people should never be exposed to them, even within a block.
Yeah.
And,
well, they're going to be putting them on.
Children should never be around the smart meter.
No, of course not. They're going to put them on water meters now. so they can tell when you're overusing water, especially in California. And if you take a shower that it runs too long, you're in trouble. $500 fine for taking a too long shower, and all this is going to be ratted out on the user by his or her set of smart meters. Gas, water, electric.
You know that there's plenty of water. The water shortage and the food shortages are all being engineered. It's all
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. I've postulated that the high-pressure ridge blocking the storm systems coming in for the last 2 years off California are there for a reason, created by HAARP, because they don't want the storms that come in and originate out of the Kamchatka Peninsula area, South Korea, northern Japan, because those storms are picking up too much radioactivity on their way across. So they had a choice to make. Do we let those storms come in as usual and rain all across California, Oregon, Washington, into the Sierras, then the Cascades, and across through Utah, Idaho, into Colorado, across the Rockies, heading east? Or do we stop them and make them go north, up into Canada, or south, down into Baja, and then back across the Pacific? And I maintain that there's a very good likelihood that these storms were intentionally blocked. The drought was created. It was an option, either or. You either irradiate the land forever. People with Geiger counters will be going out forever, picking up readings that are too high, or do you stop the storms and create a drought? And I think they actually created a drought to stop the radioactivity coming in.
Well, plus they want to starve us out anyway. That's part of their agenda, you know.
But the easiest way to control someone is through his or her stomach. That's it.
That's right. But, Jeff, this radiation's out of hand. I mean, if you look at the ratings all across the country, they're double and triple and quadruple in some places what they should be. So we're already being affected by Fukushima.
People have no idea. They don't know the most important word of all. It's got a hyphen in it. Bioaccumulation.
That's right.
And we just don't get it.
But it's not a problem with plutonium, because if you get one plutonium molecule, you're dead. It just takes time. That's different than regular radiation. That is super toxic.
Hundreds of millions of animals have been killed from Fukushima radiation along the west coast of the U.S. and Canada in the last 4 years.
That's right.
Hundreds of millions. There may not be much life left in the entire North Pacific. My bet would be that there isn't.
That's right.
The sardine fleets, they gave it up. Finally, they were actually told to come back into port because there weren't enough sardines and they didn't want to overfish them. Well, how do you overfish something that's already dead and virtually extinct, which is the case?
Well,
so
that's right.
It's bad news. Thank you, Preston, for being here as always. It's great. Preston will be joining us twice a month on Thursdays on this program, so be sure to tune in. Okay, my friend, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. You take care and get better fast, okay?
Thanks. I will. Okay, we'll be right back with hour number 2 after this.